Hi, welcome. My name is Emily Good, and today I am going to tell you about all the books that I read in September. I will just say that I have filmed this before, and the first video was horrific, so I feel like I have done a little bit more preparation. So hopefully this goes better than the first one did. And thank you, as always. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you're taking care. Let's just go ahead and get started. So I do have a new fun thing to introduce, and if you read a lot of library books, I'd love to know if this might be something that would interest you as well. What I did in the month of September was I wrote down every library book I read. If it was a physical book, then I wrote down the physical price of the book. If it was an audiobook, I wrote down the price of an audiobook. So I actually have how much I saved in the month of September by utilizing my library. And it was really kind of fun to see how much I was able to save by utilizing a totally free resource. So I'm going to continue doing that, and hopefully at the end of the year I will have a high number of how much I saved by using that library. It will be good motivation for me because now I can spend that money um, elsewhere, or I could just save it. But okay, let's go ahead and get started. I DNF'd one book, and I'm going to also let you know how I did with Shaketember. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. The book that I DNF'd was The Final Girl Support Group by Mr. Grady Hendrix. So I read the Southern House Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I know that that's not the correct title, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Also by Grady Hendrix. And I really enjoyed that book a lot. But I was watching As Told by Maddie. I forget what video it was where she was talking about how much she really kind of disliked the way that Grady Hendrix was talking about women. It was very misogynistic, and she might not have used that word, so this is just take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But basically I did not realize that Grady Hendrix was a guy, and I think that it would be a different reading experience to know that the author that I'm writing about women is a man versus a woman. I don't know why I thought Grady was a was a female, but anyway, I was reading this book knowing that this is a man writing it. And I maybe got 30 or 40 pages in. The premise is that the Final Girl Support Group, it is a group of women who escaped murder. Again, I only got 40 pages in, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but the gist was all these women who meet weekly for these support group meetings are survivors. And it is a very exclusive group. Now, they certainly deserve exclusivity. You know, they've all survived this super traumatic thing that a lot of people can't relate to. But I was so annoyed 20 pages in how much it was written like, oh, well, we're final support girls. So, you know, we're just different. Like, this is different for us. I didn't like any of the women who were sitting around the circle. I didn't like the way that they were talking about each other. I didn't really like knowing that I was going to read about how these women are, I assume what was going to happen was they were going to be like picked off one by one. And I just genuinely wasn't interested in reading a man talk about how women are being picked off one by one. I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't find them to be women that I wanted to spend any time with at all. So I was just like, you know what? There's too many other books that I want to read this month. So goodbye, The Final Girl Support Group. I'm not saying I'll never read another Grady Hendrix book. I would be interested to see how I would feel about the Slaying Vampires book by him. Knowing now that it's a man, I might read it totally differently. I don't know, but I definitely am thankful to As Told by Maddie for pointing that out. This was a man, because otherwise I wouldn't have known. I don't know what goes on in my head sometimes. Now let me tell you about my other fail. I shouldn't call it a fail. I really shouldn't. It's not a fail. I didn't follow through with my plans with Shaketember. So I have some really lovely plays that I was wanting to get to. I have some lovely Shakespeare resources. If you're not familiar, Shaketember is a month-long basically ode to William Shakespeare. I was really interested in it. I was really excited about it. And very quickly, like 2 weeks in, I realized I can either sit and kind of study the Shakespeare play, which was what it kind of felt like to me. I definitely know that there can be enjoyment out of it. I just found myself being not so excited. So I was really, really excited. I love that it's a thing. I just kind of found that I have so little reading time that I kept finding myself like when I would go to pick up a Shakespeare play, I just so badly more so wanted to read something else. I just didn't really, I wanted to turn my mind off, not have to make it work super hard. So this just wasn't the year for me. I just have a lot of things going on. We all do. I know that. I'm not saying that I am more busy than anybody else. Just for me, this year I didn't finish any plays, and that's okay. So yeah, I'm happy that Shaketember is a thing. I certainly each year I will try to bring awareness to it. I would really like to throughout the year. I hope to read a few plays, still respect Shakespeare in that way. Maybe audition for a play, maybe. I think sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, but I definitely will try to incorporate more Shakespeare into my life just for this month. I wasn't into it, and that's okay. Okay, so moving on to the books that I really super loved. The Shining. I finally read The Shining by Mr. Stephen King. I have read several Stephen King books. This is the first one that I didn't feel like any information short of the use of the N-word, some different places. Like it was like kind of overkill. I just kind of skipped over those parts. That's the only thing in the whole book though that I thought should be that could be removed. Lots of Stephen King books, in my opinion, I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm like, why are all these different plot lines happening right now? Why are all these different characters all present right now? Like it just doesn't seem necessary to me, and it's like 400 pages longer than it needs to be sometimes, in my opinion. Not The Shining. I was immediately immersed. I was so into it. I loved the entire reading experience. I was reading it late at night after my kids would go to sleep. I was terrified to get up out of my bed to go to the bathroom. I was so scared of everything, to the point where I would start leaving the light on when I would go to bed, knowing that I was going to read, because I was just so terrified. If you haven't read Stephen King and you're looking for a good, really scary book to get started with, I highly recommend The Shining. It's my favorite book that I've ever read by him. So let me tell you what it's about. So Jack Torrance is a recovering alcoholic. He's made some mistakes. He's hurt his son. He's gotten fired from his job. He's got a loving, devoted wife, Wendy. And basically he's been given a second chance to go to this overlook hotel up in the mountains of Colorado. They're basically being told that they are snowbound all winter long. And upon getting there, they see that all these other workers are leaving for the winter. So it's literally just going to be this family there. 3 people staying in a hotel by themselves. They don't know anything about this hotel. Just some eerie things happen at the beginning. But they're excited. They're excited as a family. They're gonna bond this winter. It's gonna be great. And Jack really doesn't have anywhere else to turn. Well, things start to go awry. The hotel comes alive, and Lots of scary things happen. I did not like Jack Torrance, which I assume was the point. I definitely don't think that that was an accident that I didn't like him very much. It just kind of, that's the way that it went. I just wasn't a big fan of him. I loved the way that the book ended. I loved Danny's gift. The shining that he has, he just, knows things. He senses things. He makes a wonderful friend, and I'm so sorry. I did do a whole reading vlog on this, and I spoke very highly of his friend that he made. And I just love him. So if you're interested in reading about and listening about that friendship, please go watch that vlog. I had so much fun making it. I had so much fun reading it. I highly recommend. 5-star all the way, The Shining. I will absolutely return to it again in the future. I loved everything about it. Okay, so my third book, my second full book read was Mary by Nat Cassidy. If you, Michaela Reeds highly recommended this book. She talked about it in a wrap up, and I listened to her talking about it, and I had to pick it up. So I think I got it on Audible first, and like halfway through, I was like, this is a book that I need to have on my bookshelf, and I'll tell you about it. So Mary is my favorite thing about this book was that Mary is your average, looked over, almost invisible woman. She is forgotten. She is disrespected in her job. She is just kind of, you see these women every day. I loved the different aspects that he wrote about in there, of like these women who you just overlook, you don't pay attention to. Once you get middle-aged as a woman, you start gaining weight, people just don't notice you anymore. And I really loved, so I said earlier about Grady Hendrix, I didn't feel like I liked the way that he talked about women. What I will say about Nat Cassidy is he did a foreword about writing about Mary, and he did an author's note at the end. Throughout the entire book, the way that Nat Cassidy respected Mary, he gave her so much. He did justice to Mary. Actually, at the end in the author's note, one of my favorite parts of the entire reading experience was Nat Cassidy was saying, like, is it for a middle-aged, white, straight man to write this story about this woman? And his answer was, I don't know. And as a reader, as a woman, I say, yes, it was your place, Nat Cassidy. You absolutely deserve to write about Mary because you did her justice. You did middle-aged women justice, and I definitely applaud the entire thing. So Mary, you start out, she's kind of getting shit on in her life. She's living in New York City, working at a bookstore. She's not appreciated. Nobody notices her even really working there. This is my son. So that's kind of how the book starts. She's got her little figurines who she's best friends with. So it just kind of immediately you're drawn into, this is a lonely, forgotten, uncared about woman. She's kind of going through something. All the doctors are saying it's menopause. They're ignoring her symptoms. Things are starting to go on in her head, and they're just kind of saying, oh yeah, it's menopause. So totally typical. You're fine. So some things end up happening. She ends up back in her hometown with her aunt, who was never very nice to her. Basically, she kind of draws her back to her hometown at the desert, which works out perfect because of her work situation kind of falling through. So she ends up back at this shitty place where she doesn't really remember a whole lot, but it's not New York City. So she ends up back there. Her aunt is super nasty. She's not a nice woman. And she ends up discovering some scary things about herself. She realizes the way she's connected to the town's serial killer. There's some eerie things going on, and she goes on a journey of self-discovery while in a horror novel. That's really what I'll say about it. I thought that it was wonderful. I'm so happy to have this. I know that in the future, once I get to a little bit further on in life, I'm going to appreciate the fact that I have this book, that this book exists. It's really, to me, as a reader, I feel like it's an ode to forgotten older women. Honestly, we all matter, but yeah, as we get older, people stop caring so much about you. You become a little bit more invisible. And I really felt like this was a testament to that. And I definitely applaud the book. I applaud Nat Cassidy for writing it, and I really applaud Michaela Reeds for speaking so highly of it and forcing me. She forced me to pick it up. So I'm very thankful for that. Let me go into a little fun book that I read. It was middle grade. It was a book that I listened to on Libby, and it's called The Halloween Moon by Joseph Fink. So The Halloween Moon follows Esther Gold. Okay, she is probably in middle school, I would say. She is obsessed with Halloween. She loves everything about Halloween. She makes 3 different costumes. It is her favorite time. It's not the candy. It's not necessarily just the costume. She enjoys the whole experience of it. She is passionate about Halloween, and I loved that. I just loved that it was it's like a Halloween night adventure, basically. So yeah, you've got Esther Gold and her parents this year. She's just gone through her bar mitzvah. I'm not Jewish, so I don't recall which is which, but she just went through that. So she's 13 now. She's 13. And her parents have decided that this year she is too old to go trick-or-treating. I kind of thought that it was kind of shitty of them to wait until the day before Halloween to let her know that they weren't going to let her go trick-or-treating. But I'm not her parents. So that's just the decision that they made. And they're kind of sticking with that. Esther's heart is broken. So she comes up with a plan to still carry out her plans, because that's her favorite. It's her favorite holiday. It's what she lives for all year round. So she comes up with a plan. Her best guy friend gets involved. And they come up with a plan so that they can still go trick-or-treating, okay? She's got a bully at school, a very not nice girl. She's just very mean to her. And the other character who comes into play is her neighbor. He is an older guy. He's a dentist. So he's like that guy. I just remember, in my neighborhood, you always had the house where the woman was, passing out Bibles. She would pass out Bibles and pencils, I think. And it's a really nice gesture, and I definitely understand why she did it, appreciate her making that choice and sticking with it. But nobody wanted to go to her house for trick-or-treat. And this guy's kind of the same. He gives out toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental floss. So Esther's kind of like, this guy is lame. She's nice to him, but she's like, this neighbor is lame. He doesn't have any fun to him. Whatever. Well, this little bandit of 4 end up going through this Halloween night. So some things are amiss. You've got these 2 brothers. One of them drives a pumpkin truck suddenly, and one of them drives an apple truck. They're very spooky. They're the ones who, in one of my videos, they the one talks in a smile. Very creepy. It was honestly very creepy for a middle grade at first for me. And there's this older woman witch. Well, basically what they're trying to do is make Halloween last for eternity. So they've got these weird systems in place, and Esther Gold and her friends basically are trying to fight the power, fight the adults, while the actual adults are all sleeping. They've been put under a spell, and they are all down for the count, whereas the kids are the ones left in charge. So it gets pretty wild. I had so much fun reading it. It's a wonderful Halloween tale. Super easy to get through, super fun. I really enjoyed the reading experience. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I don't feel like I'll ever read it again. I could honestly be 3 or 4 stars now that I'm further away from it. It was fun. It was really cute. I'm glad that I read it. It was a good reading experience. I don't feel like I'd ever read it again, but it was super, super cute if you're looking for something easy. Just easy and fun. I liked it. Okay, the physical book, another physical book that I read is The Adventures of Amina Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. She's also the author of the Daevabad trilogy. I knew nothing about this author. I knew nothing about this series. I hadn't heard anything about it, hadn't seen anything about it, hadn't seen anything on YouTube about it, nothing. But I saw it, I was searching through the new releases at the library and I saw it and I was like looking at the cover and I was like, oh my gosh, so stunning. And then I read the inside. So, she is retired now. Amina is retired now. She's living a quiet, poor life with her daughter. She used to be like one of the most renowned pirates on the Indian Ocean. She's lived all kinds of adventure, lived all kinds of life. She's like this badass retired pirate. And some things happened and she ended up retiring. She's got her daughter now and she knows that people are probably looking for her. So she lives a very quiet, isolated lifestyle with her daughter and her mom. But they're poor. They need money. And one day to her little cottage, I'll describe it as. Okay, so Amina is basically a woman shows up to her little cottage where her daughter lives with her, and this just makes Amina mad. We're wondering who this woman is. Well, she ends up letting Amina know that she knows who Amina is, and she's offering basically Amina's family $1 million for her to go look for her granddaughter, who the woman says has been kidnapped. So Amina ends up going on, being forced to go on an expedition of the high seas looking for this woman's granddaughter. Here's what I liked about it. So adventure, fantasy, typically not my thing. I am, however, a mother. I am a woman who used to live a very different life than I do now, I will say. You know, I used to be much more adventurous, very spontaneous. I don't know if you can tell, I am very flighty, very free-spirited, very hippie-ish. I used to teach hula hoop lessons. I, used to live in New York City. I used to live in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I just would get an idea in my head and I would go do it. And obviously that's harder to do now that I am a mom of almost 3. So what I connected to as a woman, as a mother, I connected to Amina. That was what really drew me to the book. And I ended up finding that I enjoyed the story a lot. The magical parts, some of the battle stuff that you'll get with a fantasy adventure book were a little bit hard for me to digest, but I do think upon a second reread, which I would be willing to do, this is going to be a trilogy, so I will probably reread it right before the second one comes out. So the fact that I'd be willing to reread it says something about this book. I kind of gave you the gist. I really enjoyed the way that she rounded up her old friends and the way that they all kind of came together. I love a good story about friendships. I love a good story about a woman reclaiming her identity for herself outside of being a mom. So that was what I connected to with it. I definitely don't think that this is the most fully realized wrap up on the adventures of Amina Sirafi, but other than those different aspects of the book, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, which for me, 4 stars generally means like I would be willing to reread it, and I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite. I definitely, I won't buy it. I don't need to have it on my bookshelf, but I enjoyed it. I think if you are a fantasy slash adventure type of reader, I definitely think that you would enjoy it. My boyfriend, I was telling him about it, and he is definitely interested in reading it. He loves pirates. He loves things like that. So I do think that if that's you, that you would probably enjoy this book. For me, a non-adventure, non-fantasy reader, all I can really comment on is the fact that I liked it because she was a mom reclaiming her identity, which sometimes I find myself desperate for. But so it was nice to go to her world and watch her kind of become a badass pirate again. So that's what I'll say about that. Okay, so let me tell you about another Libby audiobook I listened to that I was pleasantly surprised that I loved. That was If He Had Been With Me, written by Laura Nowlin. So If He Had Been With Me is I can't remember if I just said, it's a teen fiction book. So if you're not into teen fiction, I typically don't find myself reading it, but I don't know, I forget like why I ended up borrowing it and like pressing play on it, but I am so glad that I did. I was actually really surprised. So I actually posted a picture of me. I posted a picture that ended up getting shared to Facebook where I said that that was what I was currently listening to. And a girl said that she found that book to be so cringy and she hated it. She kind of compared it to Normal People by Sally Rooney, which Sally Rooney, Normal People, is actually a very popular book. You may have heard of it. I did not like Normal People. I didn't like the way that the stories were told. I didn't like either of the characters. However, I took offense to this comment because I was like, I don't compare the two at all, other than the fact that they're both taking place in high school. I thought that If He Had Been With Me was a beautiful story. I ended up crying at it. So it follows Autumn and Finn, okay? They have been best friends. Their moms are best friends. They grew up right across the street from each other their whole lives. So they have always been very close. They spent holidays together. They would have like sleepovers together until they got to a certain age and their moms found it to be inappropriate. But basically in middle school, Finn became Mr. Popular. All the girls had a crush on him, and Autumn turned into kind of, they didn't embrace each other the way that they had used to. Like something happened to where they kind of grew apart a little bit. What I loved about the story was, and then you get to high school, and Autumn ends up with the like emo, like kids who are desperate to be different. They dress very grunge. So Autumn starts dating this super hot king emo, and Finn ends up dating the popular cheerleader. He ends up being the super popular kid. Everybody loves Finn. Nobody really pays attention to Autumn. And it's kind of one of those stories. And it kind of takes you through, I don't know if you've ever seen Love and Basketball. It's kind of like that, where they don't interact a whole lot like at school and things like that, but they love each other. They love each other so much. I found not one single character to be annoying. Even though it was teenagers, even though whatever, I did make a vlog, but I don't know if I'm going to go through all the editing. I might just end up deleting it. But what I said in the vlog was like, I think it's important sometimes, especially me as a mom, what I hope to definitely do, especially as my kids get older, I think it's important to revert back sometimes to teen fiction so that we can remember what it was like to feel so uncertain, to feel so self-conscious, to remember what the world around us looked like in high school. And of course, like now, you know, the older you get, the bigger problems become, the bigger your world kind of gets. But like in high school, even though to an adult, it seems like teenagers are dramatic, annoying, whatever, I think it's important to kind of return back. It gives us our empathy for them, maybe. So I definitely hope to, you know, every once in a while to read a teen fiction, especially again as my kids get older, so that I can continue to connect with them and remember, because I think it's really easy to forget. What this book gave to me was love. I loved Autumn and Finn. I loved the heartbreak that Autumn ended up dealing with. I loved the way she wrote about her relationship with like her emo boyfriend. I loved her friendships that she had with her friends who weren't Finn. I loved the way that Finn just loved Autumn all along. I cried at the end. Things kind of ended up coming together a little bit, and then they dramatically fell apart, and it made me cry. So I actually might do the vlog just so that I can have that footage, because I filmed my wrap up of it after I finished it, and I just couldn't stop crying. I was so sad, and that hardly ever happens to me, even with an adult fiction book. I don't generally cry. And the fact that this teen fiction book made me cry was miraculous to me. I loved it. I found it to be a super fun read. It takes you through their whole high school career. If you're looking for an easy teenage, I wouldn't call it a teenage romance, honestly. Like, it's more than a romance to me. They didn't get together for years. They just loved each other in silence for years, and were just kind of figuring themselves out. I loved the teenage aspect of it. I loved the high school vibes. I loved everything. If he had been with me, I ended up giving 5 stars, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for something just easy to read, but something that might make you feel something. I don't know. It might have just been me. It might be my pregnancy. I don't know, but all I know is that I loved that reading experience. So, done talking about it. I have one more book that I have to talk about, and it was another middle grade. Middle grade has just been a really lovely, fun way to break it up a little bit. I ended up actually renting this book on Libby, but I drove to Georgia, so I took 2 trips in the month of September. I went to the Outer Banks of North Carolina with my 2 kids, and then a week later, I drove to Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, to pick up my stepchildren. I drove the whole way by myself, so I finished Nevermoor on my drive. And there are these bookstores. If you're anywhere near Georgia, or I think that there's also some in South Carolina, there is a place called McKay's. It's McKay Books, CDs, Movies, and More. It's like a huge warehouse of used books. You basically can find anything there. And I was listening to Nevermoor, and I knew for sure that I was going to want to continue with the series. It kind of was giving me Harry Potter / Hunger Games vibes. So I ended up buying the book as well. And I just loved the experience. So let me tell you about that. So it's Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow, written by Jessica Townsend. What did I love about this? So I felt really terrible for Morrigan. She has grown up being told that she is cursed. Anything bad that happens throughout her town automatically is blamed on her. She's just been told her whole life that she is cursed, that she's basically this terrible person, and she's actually destined to die when she gets to a certain age. To be honest with you, I don't remember what the age is, but like, Eventide. For Eventide, she is going to die. And her family, her dad and her stepmom are just horrific to her. They genuinely do not care that she's going to die. They give her no time, no thought, no anything. about the fact that she is going to be dying on this night. But she ends up being rescued, basically. So I don't know, there's some type of event where people can bid on kids to like sponsor them to get like a good education. And Morgan, obviously, because she's going to be dying soon, she should not have been in the fight at all. But 3 different bidders ended up like bidding on her, and her dad's all pissed because he's like, she's gonna be dying soon, like this cannot happen. It was really weird. But on the night of Eventide, right as she's about to supposedly die, this man comes. Jupiter. I love Jupiter so much. He is a knight in shining armor. Picture Hagrid, but kind of like a hot, fun, very agility. I don't know if that's the right word, but he's able to move. He is magical. He is super wonderful. So that is Jupiter. And he comes to Morgan's aid. He takes her away to this magical place of Nevermoor. And there are these trials. So she's trying to get into this type of society, she's being told. And there's these trials for her to get into the society. So the first book is her going through these different trials. She lives in a hotel. There's all these magical creatures. She ends up making a best friend with a boy who is like the best at flying dragons. It was super fun. It was super cute. I am definitely looking forward to picking up the next one, which I also got at the McKay bookstore. And I'm just excited about it. I really, really enjoyed it. I think that Sarah without an H, if you ever watch her, she made a... Hi! She made a video of like most underrated books that you need to read, and she put this series in there. And I'm glad that she did, because it kind of brought it to the forefront of my mind. I had never thought about reading it, but I'm really glad that I can't really remember what I was saying, and things are starting to get a little bit hectic here, so I'm gonna have to cut it off. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I ended up rating it 4 stars. It's not like a new favorite, but I am very excited to continue the series. Thought it was super cute. If you're looking for a really nice middle grade book series to get into, Nevermoor is fun. It's super cute. Okay, so that is my September wrap up. How much did I end up saving this month? Okay, so I actually went through, again, like the Halloween Moon I rented on audio, and to purchase it on Audible, it would have been $7.70, which I didn't have to spend. The Adventures of Amina Sirafi, to buy the hardcover edition, is $20.23. It might be more expensive than that, but I think I might have written down how much it would have cost to buy the paperback, but I'm not totally sure. The number I have written down, though, is $20.23. If He Had Been With Me on Audible costs $12.03, which I did not have to spend. And the Final Girl Support Group would have cost me $14.39. And I would have been pissed if I had bought that book, because that is $14.39 I will not get back, and I was not going to read past like page 40 of it. So how much I saved in total was $54.35. Which is so stellar to me. That's just 1 month. That's only 4 books. So if you read more books, if you do a lot of Libby, if you do a lot of audiobooks, it would be such a crazy amount of money saved. And it's really kind of cool to put it like that. So I'm going to start incorporating that into my wrap-ups. I'm so happy to say that I saved $54.35. It makes me feel so frugal. But yeah, that's my wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. My last video, I was going through the struggle bus. As you can see, it is still hard. You know, it's hard, but I really, still need to respond back to those, comments, and I'm so thankful for all the kind words. I almost cried, at Michaela Reeds's comment. I haven't totally gotten through the other one. But I definitely just so appreciate the support. I appreciate the validation, and I will not doubt myself or my abilities or my worthiness here again. And I very much am thankful to you for watching or commenting or really just kind of being here, lurking. I appreciate it very much so. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.